Hello, everybody. Several weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to buy this original Gravely garden tractor cover from an estate auction. And I put a video from that auction up on my YouTube channel, and I made a comment that because of all the holes and tears in this cover, I'm just going to use it to make a pattern so I can make a few covers for myself to use. And since that time, I've had a lot of people reach out to me either wanting to buy the cover, asking if I can send them a pattern, or more commonly, asking if I'm going to reproduce these things, and if so, how much am I going to charge? As much as, I appreciate everybody reaching out, and I do sincerely hope somebody makes these covers and sells them at an affordable price. I'm just not the guy to do it. So what I've been telling everybody that I will do is make a YouTube video on how to make a pattern for one of these and how to put one together. And this is that video, so let's get into it. But before we get into the pattern itself, let's take a moment and see how this cover actually works. So it's placed onto the tractor from behind. Both of the handlebars go through openings between the side panels and the middle panel. And then up front, there's another opening that goes around the advanced casting. And at the bottom of the cover on each side of that opening, there's a grommet. On each side, those are tied together, and that secures the cover onto the tractor. Now you notice the bottom edge of this cover is simply hemmed, and all of the seams between the side panels and the middle panel are reinforced with 1¼ inch wide thick cotton webbing. The handlebar openings are made by leaving the middle panel intentionally about 2 inches too long, and then using that extra length to jut out, loop around, and reattach, and basically form kind of an elongated letter P. The handlebar opening on the left side of the cover is 6 inches tall, but the handlebar opening on the right side of the cover, because of the size of the shift levers, is 10 inches tall. You'll also notice that there's a tapered hem on the side panel at that handlebar opening. It starts about 1/2 inch on the top, and it tapers down to a fine point at the bottom. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the pattern itself. Both of your side panels are the exact same size. They take the same pattern. And because they're a little oddly shaped, I put this together to show you how to make your own pattern. I made mine out of poster board. You can make yours out of whatever you want. You're just going to take some basic measurements. You're going to make 5 dots, connect those dots, and cut out along the lines. So we're going to start off on the bottom edge, and it is 28 inches long. So you're going to make 2 dots 28 inches apart to establish your bottom corners. And you're going to go to your lower left-hand corner, and you're going to come straight up 90 degrees, 9 inches. You're going to come in 3/4 of an inch. You're going to make a dot. You go back down to your lower left corner, come in 3 5/8 of an inch, straight up 90 degrees, 13 3/4 of an inch. You're going to make another dot. Now you're going to come back down to your lower right-hand corner, and you're going to come straight up 90 degrees again, 27 inches. You're going to come in 1 1/8 inches. You're going to make another dot. Now the distance between this dot and the last dot that you just made should be 27 inches. If it's a little off, just adjust it. That's fine. The important thing is that you get a 27-inch measurement there. Now the radius between these 2 dots, just for the record, it's 6 inches. You could use a compass to make that a nice perfect curve. You can freehand it, do whatever you want. It's a tractor cover. It does not need to be exact. But what you do need to keep in mind is the distance along this top edge. The straight, this curve, up to this corner is 41 inches. And then down the back edge is 27 inches. That gives you 68 inches. That is an important measurement because the middle panel that goes up the top and down the back is going to be 70 inches. So you got 70 inches along the middle. You got 68 inches along the side panel. That's a 2-inch difference, and that is going to create the openings where your handlebars are going to slip through. So connect your dots, trace your lines, cut out your pattern, and then go ahead and lay it on your canvas and trace it out on your canvas and cut out your side panels. The middle panel itself is very simple. It's just a rectangle. It's 71 inches on the long edge, 23 and a half inches on the short edge, and you're going to cut an opening on one end of it to go around your advance casting and put your two grommets in. Now, the reason that the long edge is 71 inches is because you're going to hem a half an inch on those short edges. When you get that hemmed, you're going to have a final length of 70 inches along the long edge of your middle panel. Here's how you make and use the pattern for the opening that you're going to cut in the lower front of the tractor cover. This is where the cover is going to wrap around and tie off around the advance casting on your tractor. And you can see the hole looks like a home plate in baseball, so it's a pretty easy shape to recognize. So you're going to start off with your piece of paper. You're going to draw yourself a center line. And from the bottom edge, you're going to come up 3 inches along the center line. You're going to make a dot. And you're going to come up 6 inches from that bottom edge along the center line. You're going to make another dot, and you can't see it because I've got the opening cut out. And then you're going to come up 10 inches along the center line again from the bottom edge, and you're going to make your third dot. That's going to be the top of your opening. So the widest part of your opening is 6.5 inches. It's 3 1/4 left and right of that center line. So go ahead and make those two dots for your upper left and upper right corners of your opening. And you're going to make the same 3 1/4 dots left and right of your 6-inch mark. And you're going to connect those sides so you've got your little square. And then you're going to draw diagonals from the bottom edges of your square down to your 3-inch dot off the center line. And that will give you your little home plate shape. Now, how you use this pattern is you're going to find the center line of your middle panel, and if you have already hemmed the lower front of that center panel, you're going to go ahead and place this pattern right on the center line on the edge of your canvas, and you're going to trace out your opening, cut straight up that 3-inch line, and then cut out your opening. If you haven't hemmed the edge yet, you're just going to place this pattern a half an inch up off of the edge of the canvas, just to allow for that hem. And then you're going to trace and you're going to cut out your opening. The materials for this project are quite simple, and I will put a materials list in the description. But you're going to need 2 yards of canvas. For this cover, I'm using 1200 denier waterproof canvas, which actually feels a little thinner than the original. Closest color match I found is either army green or olive drab. You're going to need 15 feet of 1 1/4 wide heavy cotton webbing. You're going to need a pair of grommets, about 2 feet of either shoelace or paracord for tying the front of the cover, and some thread. I opted to use quilting thread that matched the color of the webbing and regular thread that matched the canvas. Now that we've made our patterns and cut out our panels, let's get to the fun part and actually put this cover together. There are several different sewing machines in our house, everything from a 100-year-old treadle machine to a modern computerized one. But for this project, I've decided to use my wife's 1951 Singer Model 201. And the reason I've decided to use an old straight stitch machine for this project is really simple. At the thickest point on this cover, we're going to be sewing through 2 layers of thick cotton strapping and 4 layers of heavy canvas. And while all of the machines in our house will do that, this one will punch through without even slowing down. Now, it's important to note before we get any further, this is not a how to sew video, right? There are a lot of really good videos on YouTube on how to use sewing machines and how to sew things. And a lot of people are really qualified to make those videos. I am not. My wife, my mother, very qualified to teach people how to do this stuff. Me, not so much. So I will be throwing out some tips and tricks that I've figured out on how to put these covers together. But if there's anything you see me doing that you know a better way to do it, please don't hesitate to drop a comment so we can all learn. The first sewing we need to do is to hem the short edges of the middle panel and the bottom edges of the side panels. And there are a lot of different hemming attachments for sewing machines. I've got to be honest, I'm no good at using any of them. So what I usually do for normal fabric is I just hand roll that hem in, I iron it, and then I stitch it. But this is waterproof canvas, and you can't go anywhere near this stuff with an iron because of that waterproof coating. So instead, what I did is I used the zigzag attachment for the sewing machine. I did a zigzag stitch along the edge of the canvas, kind of an overlock stitch to keep the edge from fraying. Then I folded it once and straight stitched the hem in. And once those hems are complete, then it's time to do the tapered hems along the side panels where the handlebar openings go. With all the hemming complete, it's now time to reinforce the advanced casting opening in the front of the tractor cover using our 1¼ cotton strapping. I generally like to do this before assembling the rest of the tractor cover because with all the twisting and turning that takes place here, I found it's just a whole lot easier to do this without the side panels attached. The next thing to do is to go ahead and sew the side panels onto the center panel. And unlike most sewing projects where you're sewing your item inside out and then turning it right side out so that the exposed edges of the fabric are on the inside where you can't see them, you're going to sew this tractor cover right side out and leave those exposed edges on the outside. So all you're going to do is just hold your two pieces of canvas together and run a straight stitch about 1/4 inch off the edge. Sewing the panels together so that you have the proper opening for your handlebars can be a little bit tricky. There is a specific order that has to be followed here. You're going to begin your stitching at the lower front corner of your side panel. You're going to stitch all the way up until you get to the very top point of the side panel. You're going to stop, you're going to cut your thread, then you're going to start over again on the lower back corner of the side panel and stitch straight up until you get to where the opening needs to begin for the handlebars, and that's where you're going to stop. For the left side, it's 6 inches from the top. From the right side, it's 10. By stitching the side panels onto the center panel this way, what you're doing is you're leaving that extra 2 inches of length of the center panel right in the handlebar opening and making that elongated letter P that we talked about earlier. Now that we have the side panels attached, this thing's actually starting to look like a tractor cover. But we're just going to take a few minutes, look at all these edges, take some scissors and just cut off any loose threads, anything that's starting to fray on the canvas. Just going to clean this thing up a little bit. Now you'll take your 1¼ inch cotton strapping and you'll use that to reinforce the seams where your side panels and your middle panel meet. The easiest way I found for me personally to do this is to take that strapping to bend it around the seam and clip it all in place. And then once everything's clipped in place, now take it to the sewing machine and sew it on. I've just found this a lot easier than trying to bend it and hold it into place and sew it on all in one step. Now it's just a simple matter of sewing the strapping onto the seam by running it through the sewing machine and pulling the clips off one by one. When you get to the end of the strapping, you may want to run some stitching back and forth across the bottom edge to try to keep it from fraying. And if you have some clear glue or nail polish available, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to dab the bottom of the strapping with that also. The last step in assembling this tractor cover is to go ahead and install your grommets and then loop your shoelace or your paracord through so you can tie off the front of your cover. And with that, your tractor cover is now complete. Let's go outside and see how it fits. On the left-hand side, we have the original tractor cover that I picked up at the estate auction, and on the right, We have the reproduction that we just finished making. I'd say it looks pretty good. The only thing it's missing is the lettering. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and with the information in it, you'll be able to reproduce this tractor cover for yourself or for somebody else. And again, if there's anything in this video that you've seen that you think you could improve upon, that somebody else would find helpful, please don't hesitate to drop a comment so we can all learn. Thank you again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on another episode.